watched Trump's meeting with the president of the Philippines, so you don't have to, and here's my overview, and boy was it a doozy. Craziest thing first, he said if you took an Alabama LSU football game that holds 128,000 people and doubled it, that's how many illegal immigrants were coming into the U.S. on a daily basis under Joe Biden. If you do the math, 128,000 times 2 times 4 times 365, he thinks somehow that 373,760,000 people came into the country. He thinks we more than doubled our population under Joe Biden. All right, let's get into it. This was about 35 minutes long. He mentioned Obama 18 times. He mentioned Hillary 8 times, and he mentioned Sleepy Joe 4 times. He said Biden had no idea what he was doing, and so we had no relationship with the Philippines. If you go to the Philippines-United States relationship Wikipedia page, the second picture on there is Joe Biden talking to the exact same president he was having this meeting with. He said Jerome Powell will be out in 8 months. He said that Jerome Powell is the reason people can't buy houses because he's a numbskull. And he said that Jerome Powell cut rates to help Kamala or maybe someone else, but even Jerome Powell didn't know who he was helping by cutting rates in the fall. I have no idea what this reference is, but he says they did a study with all the great intellects, all the best economists, everybody. It was 71 people and only 2 got it right. Trump and another very smart individual. He does not tell us who that other individual is. Here's a direct quote. They have think tanks that build buildings for people who think, but it's not thinking. It's something you have or don't have. He says if Powell just lowered the interest rates, then we would save $1 trillion in interest because he doesn't understand how loans work at all. And then he says it's inconceivable. They could be spending $7 billion to build a building, but they only work half a day. He thinks that the chairman of the Fed comes in for half a day, like once every other week, and says the economy is good, and then goes home. That's what he thinks he does. Oh, and he confirms when he's saying too late, Powell, it's TOO. He confirms that because we were all very unclear of that. And then he just randomly says he has great relationships with China, even though he started a trade war in both of his administrations with the country. The juggalos are going to love this. He says that magnets are a very complicated piece of material, but that China is sending them along. And then he claims to the president of the Philippines that he's always said, make the Philippines great again. He says he doesn't know anything about his DOJ meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, but that it's probably a good idea. And then he goes into a long tirade about how Obama tried to rig the 2016 election. He said he was very glad that he let Hillary off for trying to rig the 2016 election and says that it was a good thing that he didn't go after her, but now says whether it's right or wrong, he needs to start going after people. That's not scary at all. In the middle of his long tangent about Obama, he says that the room that they're in now is much more beautiful than it was under Biden because he brought a bunch of stuff up from the vault and hung pictures around the room. Oh yeah, and he confirmed again that he thinks the Declaration of Independence that's hanging in his office is the original. Back to Obama, he says that Obama is guilty. It's not a question. They have all of the documents, and they did things in the election, presumably 2016, that no one has ever seen or heard of, even in other countries. He said he's suing the Wall Street Journal for doing bad things. Yeah, that's what he's suing him for. He, of course, said that 2020 was rigged as well, and then goes on to his stat about the 11,808 murders, where half of them have killed more than one person, again, for some reason. And then he gets back into presumably the 2016 election, because he says that Barack Hussein Obama was the ringleader, but Hillary was right there with him, and also so was Sleepy Joe. And he tells the media they should look into that instead of this witch hunt nonsense. He says in a few months we will have more ammunition than any country in the world has ever had, presumably to fight the wars that he's not going to start, that he ran on not starting. And then he says about those ammunitions, we will have the speedy missiles, the slow ones, the accurate ones. We will have everything. The speedy missiles, my God, someone needs to get this man a thesaurus. Remember back at the beginning where he was bitching about Jerome Powell not lowering interest rates and how that was affecting people's ability to buy homes? Well, he now says that they're considering getting rid of the capital gains tax for individuals when they sell their home, which, because people can't buy homes in the lower tax brackets, would mean just by direct logic that would only benefit the wealthy and ultra wealthy. Just says it openly, doesn't care. But he was impressed with that reporter for asking the question about it. He said they didn't find anything abnormal in his assassination attempt and that the shooter was just a nut job and that the FBI under Joe Biden was completely crooked, but now he's got good people in there and they've told him everything that he needs to know about him. But there was nothing abnormal. Swear to God he said that. He then goes back to Obama and says that Obama was attempting to commit a coup and that it was treason and that it's all right there in the papers. And then he says it's the biggest scandal in American history and it's even including the auto pen because somehow they're related. I guess a 2016 coup attempt by Obama is somehow related to Joe Biden's use of the auto pen. I guess. He says personally he stays out of Adam Schiff's business, even though yesterday he posted directly about him twice on True Social, but he says they have him 100% on mortgage fraud. 100%. Oh yeah, because he's a misogynistic racist, he asked 2 female reporters if they were from the Philippines. As if it matters. He says even though it hasn't been decided yet, he knows exactly what the outcome of the Harvard case is going to be, but he also says that anyone who was there as a neutral party would have been clear that his DOJ won that case, even though it hasn't even been decided yet. Remember back to the math at the beginning where he said that 373 million people entered our country? He then later in the speech says it was 21 million, but probably more than that. And then he says it was 25 million, but probably more than that. So 350 million more than that? Is that what you're saying? And all those people, why'd they let them in? He says there's only 2 reasons. One, they were going to let them vote. I'm going to be very clear here. Non-US citizens cannot vote in our elections. He says it's either that or that they hate our country. And then he clarifies he's pretty sure it's just that the Dems hate our country. And then he finishes by saying that the CBP officer who was shot in the face got dumped in front of the hospital by their friend. So was he just a plainclothes dude who happened to get shot in the face? I'm not sure. To the 10 to 13% of you that always make it to the end of these videos, thank you so much for being here. I am taking time to go through these things and make sure that I'm taking notes and organizing those notes and then making these videos. So if you're not following me, I mean, you could just follow me. It doesn't hurt you, and I am putting in effort. But on those counts, I know a lot of you like the counts of how many times he mentions these people. Obama is the furthest back in terms of like a opponent, I guess you consider, of his, and he mentioned him 18 times, but says that Jeffrey Epstein is old news. Okay? Obama was in office before Jeffrey Epstein was put in jail. Okay? And between the 3 of them, he mentioned them 30 times in a 35-minute speech. Can you believe that? Insane, dude. Insane.